All right.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. I am Warren Lee from Unlock the Day, and I have Susie Miller-Wendell with me from Susie. I'm sorry.
My coach, Susie, or Susie Miller-Wendell. Pretty much Susie Miller-Wendell is how you can find me on my different platforms. So,
and at the end of the call, we will talk about our platforms and where you can find us specifically. But today we are talking about finding our purpose and finding our purpose and living our best life later in life. So we're going to talk about several different categories. I'm just going to talk a little bit to start this about where my journey started, because for 30 plus years I've been focused in IT, but really for me the shift happened about 10 years ago. I was working for a medical device company here in Connecticut, and in the same office building as us was a camp that is here in Connecticut, and they serve kids with life-threatening illnesses. And I was talking to some of the people one day, and they said, hey, we do this great charity ride, Memorial Day weekend. We'd love for you to join. Long story short, I got about 10 people to do that ride, and it's 2 days and 135 miles across Connecticut. And we did that ride for 10 years, and it was just the greatest thing. I met some incredible people. And I met some incredible families, like people that have gone through so much, and they're just so motivating because every day they just fight this, right? And then about 5 years into this whole thing, I was looking for something more, and I found Make-A-Wish Foundation, which just is incredible. So I reached out to them, and after 4 months of training courses and interviews, and I became a wish granter for the Make-A-Wish Foundation, and for 2 years did 13 wishes and sent kids to Disney World and room makeovers, and just an amazing thing. And I think the most amazing thing was these people had literally nothing, because everything they had went into their kids, right?
I'm
and
sure.
Yet they were so positive, like nothing got them down, and everything. I work with families who had never left the state on vacation ever.
Wow.
And now they're getting picked up by a limo, and they're being taken to Disney World for a week. And it's just the memories that they came back with are just, and to this day, I talk to several of those people, but that whole environment of, you think you have issues and struggles, and then you see these families and what they're really going through. And it really changed my perspective on what I wanted to do. What did I want to do when I grew up, right? And I'm like 50 at this point when I'm doing this. And
never too late.
That never too late, right? And it wasn't that my job wasn't meaningful, because in the medical field we're creating things that are saving lives. So there was benefit to it, but it wasn't at that level where I felt like I was making a difference. And so I left that environment, and ultimately, well, in between, I worked for a really horrible company where we're going to skip those 5 years. And we're going to go into Save the Children, where I am today. And again, it's a really meaningful thing, because what I do is the division I work in is for Head Start. So I manage about 60 schools in 5 states that really are changing kids' lives and families' lives, because we're really taking them out of very difficult situations and providing not only education, but just family services. So again,
that's awesome.
Again, real benefits. But as inspiring and motivating as that is, and I love to get up every day and go to work, there's still that passion to do more and to give back to other people. And so now I'm going on 6 years divorced, and people reach out to me almost on a daily basis, and they say, and so I work with these people, and they're 40 years old, they're 45 years old, and they're like, man, I don't even know what to do with my life. Now's the time. You're going through a really tough time, but there's so many opportunities ahead of you, and they feel stuck. Like, I gave all this for so long, and now where am I? And I'm like, you're at a really pivotal point in your life where you can do whatever you want. And they're like, but I'm so old. I'm like, you're 45. I did it at 58, and
Right.
there's no stopping, now is the perfect time. And they have all of these preconceived notions and these preconceived barriers, and that they're just filling their heads with all the negative, and they're missing all the positives. And a lot of these people that I talk to, and they're men and women, just have gotten to the point where they don't see the opportunity. They don't see their potential because they've been in this situation for so long. They don't really know how to move themselves forward. And that's really kind of what I want to talk about today, is breaking down those barriers, and a lot of times those false conceived barriers, and opening up your mind to doing really whatever it is you want to do in life. So
right.
that's, I think, and I'd love to hear your story, and we share it, and then we'll keep going on. But that was just a little bit about me and kind of what got me to where I am today.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you talked about your career, and but within that, the divorce that was, I think you said 6 years ago, that's another major pivot, right?
Yep, right.
And it could be people feeling stuck in their careers, or people feeling stuck in their relationships too, and not really seeing a different future for themselves. So both of those things resonate a lot with me too. I've been in both of those spots. So yeah, so it's interesting to hear that evolution for you. And I love the message that it's never too late, and that's what I keep telling myself. Like, I don't want to make decisions that revolve around my age, because, if I had been faced with certain decisions 20 years ago, I want to be able to think about them like a 20-year-old would too, It shouldn't be my age holding me back. But, so I think those are great things to focus on. So yeah, I can share a little bit of my journey too, just from a work perspective. I spent 17 years in a corporate role, all for the same company. One thing about me is that when I commit to something, I kind of commit to it for a long time. So I was with the same company for 17 years, a major grocery retailer in the US here. I had a really great career, had tons of great experience that I gained through the process. The company was really good to me. And honestly, up until about 6 months to a year prior to me leaving, I kind of thought that's where I would stay until I retired. There's a lot of lifers within the company. I thought that was going to be me. But there was always this little voice inside of me telling me I wanted something different. And, even though I did find the work fulfilling, one parallel that you and I have, Warren, is kind of working in that philanthropic environment. But one of my roles in the company was to develop a community giving program. So I was able to do, experience of volunteering and partnering with charities. And I really loved that aspect of my job, but it was just a small aspect of my job. I knew I wanted to do more, and I wanted to do work that was like personally fulfilling to me at some stage. The other big piece for me too, that was kind of at the core of why I left and why I wasn't completely happy with the job, was just I didn't have the flexibility that I wanted to have in life. I had been a single parent for, I think, almost 7 years when I finally left. And at that time, the company wasn't very flexible on working from home. And my job was really involved. I brought work home every evening. I did work every weekend. I got to the point where I was extremely burnt out. And I also, looking back at kind of where I was when I left, I realized I wasn't performing to the best of my ability. And a lot of that centered around, again, just extreme burnout with the job, life circumstances. Like I mentioned, I've also been divorced, and I had a pretty abusive marriage and many years of post-separation abuse that now, looking back, I realize affected me at my work. I had pretty much all the symptoms of complex PTSD that there are. And I just didn't realize it. And I got to the point where the job just felt like too much, and I needed a change. And I started trying to figure out what it is I could do to have a job where I could be flexible with my time, work from anywhere, work when I wanted to work. And the first thing that presented itself to me was real estate investing. My brother-in-law and sister were moving to the area from Iowa, And my brother-in-law is a general contractor. So he was kind of starting up his whole business from scratch. I had gotten interested in real estate investing. So the timing and circumstances lined up perfectly where we decided, okay, let's try this. Let's try to buy a property and flip it and maybe keep it as a rental. So he and I ended up doing that. So I left in 2020 in the midst of the pandemic when things were crazy. And within 3 months, we had bought our first property. And I continue to invest in real estate today. But as I got into real estate investing, I started thinking, well, once I build enough knowledge, I can coach people on real estate investing. And so I connected with a coach who helps coaches figure out their business. And I was like, well, I want to do this, but I don't think I could probably do it for another year or two until I gain more experience. And he suggested that I read this book. I don't know if you've read it, Warren. It's called The Millionaire Messenger by Brendon Burchard. Oh, yeah. And it's all about how you can use your own life experiences to help other people and also make a career out of it. So as I was reading this, I was like, wow, I do have over a decade of experience navigating an abusive relationship, navigating a really tumultuous divorce and the years of abuse that followed that, and trying to co-parent with somebody who's high conflict. So I realized I had a lot of value I could share with other people. I found a coaching certification to take to build my knowledge on trauma and how it affects people. So I did that. And that's what's kind of brought me here today, where I am coaching and working with people who are either experiencing abuse in their relationships or they're further down the path and trying to heal. And I also work with people who are kind of coming to terms with being raised by a narcissistic parent and trying to figure out what that relationship looks like for them as an adult and healing from, their childhood and things that are still happening today. So that's kind of my long-winded story of how I've landed in this spot. But a few things when I look back, and some of the things that we're going to talk about today are things that were really key to my pivoting. And one of those was that I sought help. I sought help with a coach to make it happen more quickly. I leaned on my brother-in-law who had experience in this area. I started realizing as I thought about my own life experiences that I did have options when I thought for a long time I didn't have any. I thought I was just good at this corporate job and there was nothing else out there for me. And I think I just gained a lot of confidence in myself that I can figure most things out. I've worked long enough and I've done enough things. I can usually figure things out. So just kind of learning to trust yourself enough to take that leap, I think, is a really important piece too. So,
and I think to your point there, Susie, not going it alone, right? Getting the coach. And that's, it's a scary thing sometimes because there's the financial investment, there's the time investment, and is it really the right thing for me? Well, the only way you're going to know is when you find that right coach and they start, and a lot of people that I talk to are like, I don't need a coach. So the greatest athletes in the world have coaches. Right. The greatest business leaders in the world have coach. Everyone needs a coach. It's not a stigma. It's a good thing to have that coach to propel you forward. So I think it's really important. A message that I try to deliver is, if I'm not the guy, and I get that, you still need to go out there and find that coach that's going to help you move yourself forward. Right.
Yeah, and the financial piece can be a challenge, like you said, but you have to get creative. If finances are a challenge, maybe you could find someone who will mentor you, and maybe you have a skill that you could offer them and barter something back. Or most coaches have lower ticket offers, like a group coaching program or a course you could purchase for a smaller amount. There's books you can read. There's so many resources out there. Don't let that financial piece get in your way, because there are ways around that.
There are definitely ways around it. Yeah.
For sure.
So I'm going to bring up our little, I can't.
I'm curious, as you're pulling that up, Warren, one thing we didn't talk about, with making a pivot, oftentimes it means sacrificing something to get there. Was there anything on your journey that was a sacrifice? I mean, we could talk about the divorce piece or the career piece. Were there things that you had to kind of give to in order to get on the path that you wanted to get on?
And I'm sorry, I had that file there before.
Oh, that's okay.
Struggling. I don't know.
Do you want me to here?
Yeah.
Why don't were you able to I know sometimes when I'm trying to figure out something tech-wise, I'm not hearing. Did you hear? Were you able to hear my question about just like any sacrifices you had to make
Um,
along
sacrifices.
your along your
Yeah.
journey?
Well, so I think for me, one of the big sacrifices, man, I can't even believe I can't find that now.
That's okay. I'm on it. I'm going to try to
Okay.
find it here.
Great. I think one of the biggest sacrifices for me, Susie, was not taking care of myself. Like I was so focused on doing the right thing for my ex and doing the right thing for my kids and putting so much of that into it, I completely lost the concept of self-care, right? And
Yeah.
I was just so in this zone. I was like, I didn't even know, I completely lost my identity. Like I had no idea who I was. I was just this machine. Get up, go to work, come home, make dinner, go to, and it was this terrible situation that I was in because I wasn't even sure what I was doing. Like there was no purpose, right? I had zero. I was so locked into just putting food on the table and a roof over their heads and putting the kid.
Right.
I had no direction. And I think that's what I lost. I think I lost direction of what I wanted in life.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until I made these pretty significant life changes that I kind of went, I know exactly what it was. And the really interesting thing for me, Susie, is that as terrible as COVID was, it really changed a lot for me because it introduced me to, it made me go out of my comfort zone and find social media because I didn't really even understand social media until my kids honestly said, Dad, there's all this cool stuff out there. You should try it.
Yeah.
And I did, and it opened up this whole other world. So I think that's the other side of it is that you need to take that chance, right? Even if it doesn't work. I think that fear of failure is so gripping for so many people that they don't want to experience that because they may have failed in the past and they don't want one more failure.
Right.
But you can't grow if you don't take that chance, you know?
Right.
And I think once I learned that and accepted that it's not really failure, it's just learning. All you're doing is learning something and you're going to learn from it and improve on it and move yourself forward. It's kind of liberating. And that's part of the process for me was stop being who you were and be this new person. And that you can make that transformation. If I can make that transformation, there's not a person out there that can't make that same transformation.
Right. For sure. Yeah. That was well said. Well, I tried to pull up the files too, and it's not, for some reason, it's not letting me do that, but I could try sharing my screen. I've got it pulled up in my YouTube community tab. If you want me to, do you want me to try that?
Sure.
Okay. Let's see if this works. Okay. I think this might work, hopefully.
Okay, great.
Can you see that?
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Ooh,
Yep.
look.
There you go.
We have
Awesome.
this over here, but that's okay. Hopefully everybody who is watching this can see that okay. You see it all right?
Yep. I see it.
Okay.
Perfect. Yep.
Perfect. All right. I'm making my screen a little bigger so I can read. So Warren and I put together, for those of you who are listening to this and are considering making a pivot and in your life, whether it's career or relationships, whatever it might be, we put together just some steps you can take to work through some of these, limiting beliefs and fears that you're having on making that pivot. And also kind of start looking forward and planning this new vision that you want to put together. So we're going to take you through that. These are really kind of like journal prompts. So you can find this information on my YouTube community tab. I don't know if you have this posted in yours, Warren.
Yeah,
okay. So it's in both of our YouTube community tabs and other social platforms. So if you want to look at that later, you can use these as journal prompts and just start kind of working through these things. So the first one is step number 1 is reassessing your values. So really sitting and thinking about what is important to you, what makes you tick in this season. As we grow and evolve, our our priorities change, our desires in life change. So really putting that down on paper, what's important to you. Are there things that you're doing right now that are out of alignment with your values and how you spend your time? So those are some things to think about as you reassess your values.
And Susie, I just want to comment on what you mentioned, that write it down.
Mm-hmm.
That I think is so important when you visualize it. You know, I talk, one of a really key element for me in my transition was journaling, and how important it is to journal and get my thoughts on paper. And this is a perfect example of writing it down. When you get it out of your mind and then you can visualize it, it has a huge impact.
For sure. Yeah. Do you want to go over number 2?
Yep. So what are your strengths, skills, and abilities? What life experiences do you have that could help someone else going through similar things? And I think we talked about that. It's just what we have been through and what the experiences that we share. I learned so much in these past 6 years, really just evaluating what I did right and what I did wrong. And one of the things that I talk about when I talk about divorce with people is that when you're in the moment, at least for me, I missed so many signs, right? And as I came out of the divorce and I've had these 6 years to kind of think about it, I learned what a terrible communicator I was, and how my lack of communication, because I didn't want to, was it rock the apple, whatever
rock the boat.
Rock the boat. I didn't want to do that, right? I wanted that peace, because things were crazy enough that I didn't want that confrontation.
Right.
And so I just kind of held it all in and just allowed things to happen without communicating it back. And what a huge mistake. I don't think it would have changed the ultimate outcome, but at least my ex would have known where I was coming from, and she had no idea, right?
Yeah.
And so learning, going with, accepting that you make mistakes, and accepting that you didn't do things right the first time is a life experience that not only helps me, but now I'm helping others because we're talking about those things. So looking inward and being honest with yourself, I think being honest with yourself is a really big component of that.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And I think with this one, I just want to emphasize, we've talked so far about in our own personal stories, how our life experiences kind of led us to where we are today. But when you're going through this process, part of this is, what are your strengths, skills, and abilities? You might have a hobby that you're really good at that somebody else might want to learn how to do. Like maybe you know how to refinish furniture or something like that, and you love it, but you only spend a fraction of your time doing it because you've got all these other things that you've got obligations to take care of. Maybe that could be a business for you. You could start small, teaching people how to refinish furniture, and maybe you could sell your pieces. So I think sometimes when you really sit down and think about, what am I really good at? What do I love doing? You might come up with an idea for yourself that you otherwise wouldn't have thought of. So yeah. All right. We'll move on to number 3. Create a vision for your future. So I think this is really important, to start visualizing your dream life without any limits or constraints. Be detailed. And once you have that vision, write a letter about your life from your future self to your current self. So if you sit down and you think, okay, here's what I want my life to look like. Realistically, I think I could get there in 2 years. Okay. Put yourself in that position 2 years from now, and just describe what your life looks like, feels like. What are you doing? And it's a really great exercise to, again, start really visualizing what this could look like, and also to get you really excited about it. Yeah. I think it's a really motivating thing to put that down on paper and refer to it as you're along your journey of, why am I doing this? Why am I going through all these things? Okay, it's because I want to get to this point. This is what my life is going to be like.
And I will say that I follow some people on Instagram that I've been following for several years, and they have really made incredible careers for themselves in 2 years. And what's important, another thing that I stress to people is, don't be envious of what you see out there. Use that as your motivator, right? So I'm seeing these people that start out really small and over time just continue to do their live streams and create their programs and do master classes and really have that vision as you're talking about, and they executed on that vision. And now 2-3 years later, they're at a whole different level. So you can look at it and be envious of what they've done and say, I can't do that. Or you use that as your roadmap to say, look at what they've accomplished by following their mission. And now they're where they need to be. So I think that's that mindset.
Such a good mindset shift.
It really is a mindset shift to say, oh, I can never do that. Yeah, you can, because you have someone just like you who did that. It's a great thing.
Definitely. Yes. All right. I just moved to the other set of prompts here. Are you able to see that, Warren?
Let me bring it up.
Okay, there we go. Yeah. So these are our last two here. So I think that's you, number 4.
Okay. Uncover your limiting beliefs.
And you touched on this a little bit already, but
yeah, what you believe about yourself and your situation that is keeping you stuck. Where do these beliefs stem from? What is the actual truth?
It's a big one.
It's such an important one, right? Because we have such limiting beliefs because of our situations, and we don't allow ourselves to take that chance because, again, situations are, I can't do that because I have these responsibilities. And so because I have these responsibilities, I don't want to take that chance. Well, what if you take that chance and it changes everything for everyone, right? Going back again, Susie, it's mindset shift to say, look at what I can accomplish if I do this. There's no limit to what I can accomplish. And it's social media has changed, the internet has changed everything because it's so, there's no limit, right? I mean, we could do whatever we want, and there's so many opportunities once you get past that notion of I can't do it, or I'm not good enough to do it, or I don't have the resources to do it. Shifting your mind and saying, I can do this is huge.
For sure. Yeah. I think so many of these limiting beliefs that we have just stem from fear. And oftentimes, once you actually pull the trigger and do something and make this shift in your life, you look back and you think, wow, I was really creating a worst case scenario here for myself. And none of those things even came close to being true. There's fear around what other people will think too that holds us back. If we make a major life shift, what are people going to think of us? Or, again, getting back to the sacrifices you may have to make to do that. Can I live with a little bit less nice car or a different home if I have to make that change? A lot of times those things can really keep us stuck too.
And I just want to touch on one other thing, and that is regret, because I think regret is such a big part of it, right? And you don't take that chance, and a year later you regret that you didn't take the chance. And regret is something that is incredibly difficult to get past, if you can even get past that emotion. So one of the things that drives me now is that I have regretted so many things previously. I don't want to experience that again. So I'd rather try it and fail and learn than not do it and then regret that I didn't at least take that chance.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. All right. We'll move on to the last one here. Find support and guidance. So again, we've touched on this a little bit, but just thinking about who can support you on your journey. Is there a family member or a friend with similar experience who could mentor you? Again, it doesn't have to come with a high price tag. Maybe there's someone in your life who's already doing this thing, and you could learn from them. You could give them something in exchange for their time. Again, could you hire a coach to guide you? Are there courses you could take? Is there a certification you could get? There's so many resources out there to be able to support you on this journey. You don't have to do it alone. The goal is to, once you kind of get this vision for yourself, you want to get there as quickly as you can. So it's important that you find help along the way so that you can get there.
And again, for me, it's baby steps. You want to write down, and you touched on it earlier, you want to have that plan and you want to kind of check those boxes as you're moving along, but don't look at the end game and say, this is where I want. These are the steps you're going to take to get to the end game, but don't overwhelm yourself and say, I need to do this all in this time period, because
Right.
as soon as you start getting overwhelmed, that's when you start backing down from it. So compartmentalize it, get done little steps at a time, and then watch the progress. And then if things aren't working, go back and kind of evaluate why they aren't working, and then, adjust your plan as you need to going forward.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. Is there one, if you could give, I guess in hindsight with the journey you've been on, what was your biggest learning through that process, through the different things you've been through? If there's anything that you'd like to share with anyone else or the people out there.
I think it was just that overwhelming fear of failure and the willingness to not take chances. I think I was so conservative and just trying to do the best I could, and not realizing that by taking that chance, I can change everything.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll be honest, it's an unfortunate thing, but the biggest chance I ever took was getting divorced.
Mm-hmm.
It was huge, but the outcome has, huge just has huge outcome from that.
Yeah.
And the reality is that my ex is doing even better than I thought she would. So light at the end of the tunnel, yeah, but was being content and conservative a good thing? No, for me, it was a tough lesson to learn.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not that I take uncalculated bad choices and chances. I think about them and I lay them out, and then I take that chance, and sometimes they work and sometimes they don't. But every time I try something, I learn from it and I make it better. And it's this journey forward. And it's that huge mindset shift to say, yeah, I can do this versus I better not.
Right.
Be more cautious.
Yeah. And you just build confidence as you go, and you start tackling these different things that are in your path.
Yeah.
So
how about for you?
I think it would be that definitely what you spoke to. The fear piece was huge for me. I can't tell you the number of times when I was thinking about leaving my corporate job that I envisioned myself and my kids being homeless on the street. It's like your mind just goes and you think about the worst case scenario. But I think it would be that you've got options, even when you feel like you may not have options. If you sit down and think about it long enough, you will come up with something. I spent a lot of time in my corporate job, again, wanting something different for myself, but feeling like I don't know what else I would do. I've been in this job for so long. I felt like I was kind of the jack of all trades, but master of none. I wanted this dream job for myself where I could work from anywhere and have full flexibility. And I'm like, there's no one out there who's going to employ me to do, to have that kind of a setup. And I figured it out, now I'm going down this path of having full flexibility and complete control of my life. And rewind 5 years ago, I wouldn't have ever thought that's possible. So I just want to encourage people that there are options and you can figure it out.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. And it's a great feeling when it happens. And I know how scary it is to not want to take that chance. So I just want to leave today encouraging people to take the chance and have enough faith in themselves that they can do it and move themselves forward and see the difference that it's going to make in their life when they take that opportunity.
Definitely. Yes, I love it. So what's next? What's next for you, Warren? What do you got coming up?
Yeah. So, the build out of the YouTube channel is next. Some really great guests kind of lined up. I really want to take this for me. It's more of the motivational and inspirational side of things and just lessons learned and just working with people and talking about really what the tools that I use to move myself forward. We talked about journaling. My morning routine is just such a big part of my life now, and I can imagine going forward without having my routine. So I talk to people about the importance, and if you're not a morning person like I am, if you have an evening routine, you just have to have that routine.
Yeah.
I think routine is just so important to keep you focused and on track. And that was another huge miss for me, Susie, for so long was I had no routine. I was just, like I talked about, fly by night, just get through it. And now it's not that I went to the complete other side where I'm so rigid in my planning that there is no flexibility, but at least I've got that direction. So my day starts the same way, and it gets me in the mindset to do as much as I can that day.
Yeah.
And journaling is really important for me because it's a reflection of the week. So on the weekend, I can go back and I can look at the week's journals and say what worked and what didn't and why.
That's great.
And what do I need to fix? And so that whole process of getting my thoughts on paper, huge. And I think for other people, it's beneficial to not keep that all up in your head where things get so mixed up. You kind of lose track of things and you can't prioritize because you have, like I had 1,000 things kind of spinning at the same time. The more you write down and you have that clarity, the easier it is to kind of move yourself forward.
Definitely. Yeah. You have so much good practical advice and knowledge that comes out of your channels that you're on. I love seeing what you put out there.
Thanks so much.
Yeah.
So where do they find you, Susie?
You can find me pretty much everywhere at Susie Miller Wendell. My website is susiemillerwendell.com. I'm on YouTube at Susie Miller Wendell and Instagram Susie Miller Wendell. So that's pretty much where you can find me. I recommend if you want to kind of follow along with what I've got going on, Instagram is usually where I post most of my updates, and then I do some longer form content. I have some longer form content planned for YouTube because I'm getting close to launching a book in a couple weeks. So I'm really excited about that and excited to share it. So I'll be giving updates on Instagram and YouTube mainly with that book launch. So
I'd love to do another live with you when the book is out.
Yeah, that sounds great.
Awesome.
I'm down for that. Yes.
So real quick before we end, how long did it take you to write the book?
I started it late summer. I think I started in August of last year and just getting ready to publish it now.
Great. Wow.
I think I probably could have done it more quickly, but it's got a lot of my own personal story in there, and it's centered around raising thriving children after divorcing a narcissist. So it's a little scary putting that information out there in the world. So there's been times where I'm like, am I actually going to publish this book? And I mean, there's still some days where I'm like, I may not do this, but I've already told people I am, so I'm going to do it. But awesome. I think I probably could have done it a little bit faster. And I think if I journey down that path again, it'll probably not take that long. But
awesome.
It's been a good exercise for me to go through. So
yeah, I'm sure it has.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for being here.
Yes, thank you.
Again.
Yeah, same. And I hope this was helpful to those of you out there who are kind of at this stage in life and working to figure it out. And if you have any questions, feel free to comment in our different YouTube channels, and we'd be happy to answer those questions for you.
Absolutely.
All right.
Have a great one, everyone.
All right.
Thank
you too. Have a good weekend.
Thanks.
All right. Bye.
Bye.